This is a certified hood classic.
Hey, family, man, it's another day, my boys. Hey, look, man, I'm just be honest with y'all, man. We in season 2 of Quizzy on Demand. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? That means where we gonna have a lot more videos, a lot more work, man. We dropping a lot more things. Now, I know the live videos, they had to take a step back because I don't want to do live videos over on the channel anymore, really, because you know, I don't want to jeopardize the channel and something that we doing live, maybe, you know, because that YouTube be tripping about something sometimes. They be tripping. But man, we got a lot more coming to the channel. So y'all, do your boy a favor, man. Make sure you hit the like button, man. It really helped me out when you hit that like button. Go down below, subscribe to your boy. And if you want to see full videos of Archer, videos of Futurama, Venture Bros, all that, man. We got all of that, man. Over on the Patreon, only $3 a month. You can binge watch all those shows, man. Without further ado, let's get started.
Hello everyone, this video is going to be a little bit more casual today. I'm not going to put on like my super enthusiastic YouTuber voice. I just want to sit back and have a little chat. Me and you, we're going to have a chat.
All right, let's go.
So I'm a bit annoyed right now, and that's because I made the mistake of logging onto the website formerly known as Twitter, only to be met with the realization that it is officially that time of the year once again.
Oh, okay.
It's that time of the year when someone shares their hot take about South Park and rehashes the same discourse that has plagued the show for years.
What's that?
South Park made it cool to not care. Now, a tweet like this goes viral at least.
It says South Park gave an entire generation a particular flavor and brain rot that centers around the idea that taking anything seriously is by definition cringe. Meanwhile, it's always sunny, showed everyone how horrible people with South Park mentality are in practice. Is that how you feel? Beanie.gay.
At least once a year, as Twitter users
the wise words from Beanie.gay
were able to explain how damaging the show was to an entire generation, how the apathetic attitude of the show caused irreversible damage to kids who grew up watching it, leaving us with a generation of adults who think there is nothing more cringe than taking things seriously. Now, this is a tricky topic for me to cover because, to a certain extent, I agree with this.
I just think that, like, these people, if you take, there are so many things that you can take from shit. You could take good and you could take bad from anything depending on your mindset. You could take good and bad from anything. So if you decide to take the worst parts of everything, even the good things, you could take the worst parts of your religion and then use it for bad. You could take the bad part, you could take the worst things from something that like is very, very positive and make it bad, and vice versa. So it's just like, bro, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just like saying, like, the video games are the reason why kids are dumb these days. Oh, so you're right. It's not the fucking parents not teaching kids, right? You know what I'm saying? It's not that, but it's the video games. It's like, all right. It's just like, stop blaming people and start taking accountability, bro. It's these fucking parents. It's the school system. It's a lot of shit.
There are absolutely people who have pulled this message from the show and built their beliefs around it, thinking that they are too cool to care about anything and writing off any sort of discourse with both sides bad. However, there are also people who see Cartman's rampant bigotry and build their beliefs around his. And herein lies the issue with this viewpoint. These tweets and articles make the mistake of conflating the philosophy of these people with the philosophy of the show itself.
Facts.
As much as it may seem like it at times, South Park is not a show that believes it's dumb to care about things. Oftentimes, it's quite the opposite. Now, let me be clear. I don't want this to come across as me being like, well, to be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand South Park. No. My goal with this video is not to prove that my media literacy skills are superior to everyone else's. All I want is to give the perspective of someone who has watched a lot of South Park in their life and correct something that I believe to be a misconception about the show.
Facts. And
if you disagree, that's totally fine. Feel free to share your opinions in the comments so that we can talk about it.
Facts, okay.
So as the #1 South Park glazer on YouTube, I stand before you
them donuts look good too, man. I ain't even gonna fake nice glaze on a fat ass.
Today to defend the honor
my bad.
Of my favorite show against these harmful allegations. So let's do that. You know, discussing this issue on Twitter is kind of like watching yourself get into a car accident. But I have an advantage because I know that if I get in a car accident, I'm going to contact America's largest injury law firm and today's sponsor.
What the fuck? That was a hell of a transition, right? You know, man, just, you know, getting on Twitter is just like dying in a horrible blaze of fire, man. You know, I don't particularly like dying in a horrible blaze of fire. In fact, that is the sponsor for today's video, okay? All right? A fire hose, okay? It's a water hose, but it's for fires. It's fire hose attached to the side of your house and you don't die.
Morgan & Morgan. Morgan & Morgan makes it incredibly easy to submit.
Hey, shout out to my boy, man. Shout out to my boy.
Records all from your cell phone. They even allow you, if you've been in a car accident, you can start your claim with Morgan. Figure out where on the topics they to do this would be to take a look at what episodes are most often listed as examples of this philosophy and try to figure out where this idea comes from, as well as why I don't believe that it's a fair assessment. Now, I'm not going to be talking much about recent South Park, really anything within the last 7 to 8 years, since for the most part the show has shifted towards having much more overt stances on the topics they discuss, so no one is really pointing to these episodes as proof that they're apathetic. So let's start with one of the most notorious episodes of the show, and the one that I see brought up all the time when discussing this topic, Man Bear Pig.
Okay,
released in
climate
2006,
change.
This episode heavily targets Al Gore, portraying him as being obsessed with catching Man Bear Pig. They use this fictional creature as an allegory for climate change, since at the time Al Gore was doing a lot to spread awareness about climate change, including releasing his 2006 documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. This episode is pretty ruthless in its portrayal of Al Gore, painting him as a guy who only cares about himself and the attention he gets for supporting the cause, as well as outright denying the existence of climate change.
Yeah, you know, Mr. Gore, my dad's a geologist, and he said that Man Bear Pig probably isn't in Colorado.
Now, clearly, denying climate change was a bad take from the show, and I'm not here to defend the fact that this was the wrong stance to have. As much as I love South Park, I can acknowledge that they've had their fair share of bad takes over the years.
I don't know, bro. Like, I don't even really think they denied it, and maybe that's what he'll say. But I don't think that they necessarily denied climate change. I think Man Bear Pig was always South Park's take on, like, okay, it seems like something crazy, climate change. It seems like far-fetched. It seems like it's made up. It seems like it's a load of bullshit, which is like man, bear, pig. Have man, have bear, have pig. But at the same time, Man Bear Pig has not only showed up in several episodes, but he's also showed up in their specials. And Man Bear Pig also has a baby and a wife. So meaning that not only climate change, but there's other things to climate change that is going to be an issue moving down the line. And I think that South Park, I think its way of talking about climate change is saying, like, look, Stan and them, we're like, hey man, we don't believe in climate change, but climate change is a real thing because we've seen Man Bear Pig. Now, if we never seen Man Bear Pig, and every time Al Gore came on and it was just always like, oh yeah, here comes this crazy nigga again, then I could see why people would be like, all right, bro, they not taking climate change seriously. But they literally acknowledging it existing in the show just in their own way. So it's just all about how, like, you internalize it.
But I've always found it kind of weird that this is cited as an example of the show's apathetic attitude, because that's not what this debate is about. A bad take is not evidence of this attitude unless the take itself is apathetic. In this case, their stance on climate change is far from an apathetic one. They took a firm stance in denying the validity of climate change, and while this is most definitely a bad take, it is far from apathetic. Another point of contention is in their portrayal of Al Gore.
Look at this.
Now, on the surface, I could definitely see how someone may think that they are targeting Al Gore because he cares about this cause. And if that were the case, it would be totally valid to use this episode as an example of their too cool to care attitude. But what I've come to realize is that with a lot of these examples people use, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding regarding the intentions of Matt and Trey making fun of someone. In this case, and as we will see going through many of these examples, they're not making fun of Al Gore because he cares about climate change. They're making fun of him because of the way he presents himself and his beliefs. As I said, he's portrayed as this self-centered, narcissistic activist who cares more about the attention it brings him than the cause itself.
Everyone will say, thank you, Al Gore. You're super awesome.
Okay, I get that.
Mr. Gore asked me to make sure you all knew he was here.
Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about Al Gore and who he is as a person, so I don't know if this is true or not. And Matt and Trey would later make a 2-part episode essentially apologizing to Al Gore for his depiction. But for the sake of the argument, it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. What matters is that that's how Matt and Trey viewed him at the time.
Right, and I was going to say at the time. That is the biggest thing. At that time. But they They have to grow and develop. So as they grow and develop, then, you know, the people in South Park and the ideas grow and develop as well,
leading
too.
to his depiction in this episode. They weren't roasting him for caring about a cause, they were roasting him for seeming like he's using this cause to garner attention towards himself.
And now I must save the world from something else. Maybe I'll make a movie starring me. Then people will take me super serial.
That is a very important distinction to make, as it's the foundation of one of the two main targets of South Park's criticism that people often confuse for apathy. The first being that South Park doesn't make fun of people for caring, they make fun of people for pretending to care. This is an idea that Chris Raygun proposed in his video from 2020 when a tweet went viral echoing the sentiment that we have all come to know by now. But the idea that South Park targets people who pretend to care is something that fans of the show like myself are well aware of, and I think I can expand on this idea a bit. We can apply this idea to the Man Bear Pig episode, since in Matt and Trey's eyes, Al Gore didn't really care about global warming, he cared about the attention it brought him. Again, It doesn't matter if that's true or not, because that's how Matt and Trey viewed him, and that's what they were making fun of.
But now I see why you don't have any friends. You just use Man Bear Pig as a way to get attention for yourself because you're a loser.
Another episode that is often brought up in this discussion is the episode from 2004 entitled Douche and Turd. It follows Stan as he questions what the point in voting is when he has to decide between a giant douche and a turd sandwich. Again, on the surface, the message seems pretty clear. When both of the candidates suck, why even vote?
No, I think voting is great, but if I have to choose between a douche and a turd, I just don't see the point.
It's a question that is inherently apathetic, and one that is explored heavily throughout the episode.
Right.
So in that case, this episode is definitely making fun of people for caring, right? Well, not exactly. Throughout the episode, Stan is continuously lambasted by the entire town for not wanting to vote, getting increasingly annoyed by everyone's insistence on him voting. After Kyle finally convinces him to vote, he sees that Stan voted for Turd Sandwich instead of Giant Douche, who Kyle was supporting.
No, you wrote down Turd Sandwich. Yeah, I know. Dude, you're supposed to vote for Giant Douche. I thought I was supposed to make my own decision. Well, yeah, but not if your decision is for Turd Sandwich. What the hell is wrong with you?
Throughout the episode...
Damned if you do, damned if you don't, bro. Like, I don't know. I think the episode was really good at depicting... Like, I think they do good at presenting, like South Park does really good at presenting an idea, then supporting the idea, being in support of the idea, and then playing devil's advocate in the same episode, and then giving you their opinion throughout the whole, but mostly at the end. You know what I'm saying? When Kyle said, I learned something today, and then that is their, like, solution. I've you know, this is my opinion. You know what I'm saying? This is all gonna be their opinion. But I think they do a good job of presenting arguments on both sides, other than when they making fun of people. You know what I'm saying?
So it may seem like the show is making fun of people that think voting is important, since choosing between two awful candidates is pointless. But with this moment, it's clear that the true target of this episode is the people that pretend to care about getting people to vote in an effort to attract more voters to their side. So again, they're not making fun of people who care about voting, they're making fun of people who pretend to care about voting for their own self-interest.
Right.
This is further proven by the end of the episode when the show clearly states that voting is important, as Stan discusses how he needs to accept that the candidates are always going to suck and vote anyways.
I learned that I better get used to having to pick between a douche and a turd sandwich because it's usually the choice I'll have.
He's going to vote!
When his candidate loses, he once again questions if his vote even mattered, to which his parents respond.
You can't judge the merits of voting on whether or not your candidate won.
Your vote still mattered.
It's odd to me that this episode is kind of the quintessential example of South Park having this too cool to care attitude, since there is once again a very firm stance being taken here. Sure, it expresses apathy.
It kind of seems that South Park is the opposite of what people are trying to make it. It's really telling me that they're almost promoting people actually caring for a cause or not talking about it. That's what it seems like to me. Because if they always make fun of the people who talk about it and pretend to care, but then they never really make fun of the people who actually do care, then that, like I said, to me, it just seems like they're telling people, like, go hard or go home. Don't half step or don't be half ass about shit.
At having to pick between equally terrible candidates, But by the end, it makes a very clear point that voting is important no matter what the choices are. To me, that seems like the opinion of someone who cares a lot about voting. Another episode that's popular among the South Park Thinks Caring is Cringe crowd is the 2003 episode Butt Out. This episode takes on anti-smoking advocates, more specifically Rob Reiner, and goes after him pretty hard. It portrays him as an overweight man who is willing to do whatever it takes to stop people from smoking, including lying, stealing, and even murder. Now, what's interesting about this one is that it doesn't fit.
The zombie count, ugly ass boy. It look like you should be in Hellsinger Bridge, stupid ass boy. An extra for Resident Evil, boy. Transylvania.
At all with the whole pretending to care thing, since it's clear that Rob Reiner does actually care about stopping people from smoking. So if they're not targeting him for pretending to care, then surely they're making fun of him because he's passionate about a serious issue. They're making fun of him because he cares about how dangerous it can be for people to smoke. And because of that, they think that it's not cool to care this much about this topic. Right? Well, to a certain extent, yes. Kind of. You see, this episode introduces us to our second main target of South Park's criticism that people often confuse for apathy. Extremists. They aren't making fun of Rob Reiner because he cares about anti-smoking. They're making fun of him because he is so extreme about the cause to the point where his actions are immoral and unethical.
But dude, you're making stuff up.
You kids need to understand something, okay? Sometimes lying is okay. Like when you know what's good for people more than they do.
The episode focuses a lot on how he is essentially trying to eradicate cigarettes altogether. And while I can definitely understand how this may seem like a pro-smoking stance, it is far from it. They never indicate throughout the episode that smoking is good in any way. Instead, they take a more libertarian approach, discussing how people have the right to do with their body what they want, and if they want to smoke and destroy their bodies, they have every right to do so.
So now, everyone knows the dangers of smoking, and some people still choose to do it, and we believe that's what being an American is all about.
Shut up, you're just making money.
What? Dude, he just goes around imposing his will on people. He's my idol.
And force cigarette smokers to stop.
Wow. It's like smoking brings a lot of people just a little bit of joy, and you get to take that away from them.
They also make fun of him for what they see as a hypocritical stance, having him constantly stuffing his face with food throughout to show that he's telling people what they should do to be healthy while being unhealthy himself.
The tobacco companies with their millions of dollars and their slick desks and fancy buildings.
I didn't even think about that.
They're the ones making children want to smoke. They're the ones hurting our nation's health.
It's like you talking about smoking, but you're stuffing this fat ass burger. You're stuffing this fat ass burger in your mouth.
Now, as I said, the show has some bad takes. For example, in this episode, they dispute whether secondhand smoke is dangerous, which, of course, we all know that it is.
Apparently, several people here still believe there's no proof secondhand smoke.
Look at him. Look at his.
But again, the bad takes are not really relevant to this argument, since we're discussing whether the show is criticizing.
That man got nothing but sandwiches in the back. You fat fuck boy. This man whole stomach built like an apple in the front.
People who care about a topic. And whether or not you agree with their view on why people should be allowed to smoke is also irrelevant, since they make a clear and firm stance on the matter, showing that, once again, they do in fact care about the topic.
You just hate smoking, so use all your money and power to force others to think like you. And that's called fascism, you tubby asshole.
So now that we understand our two main points of confusion for the people that think the show is apathetic, for our last episode, let's talk about one that targets both of these kinds of people and really embodies the South Park spirit in making fun of an issue. In 2004, they released an episode called Goobacks, and again, this is one of the most pointed to episodes when justifying the South Park apathy idea.
Oh my God.
This episode references the issue of the Mexican-American border through an allegorical lens as people from the future
God, they ass Goobacks. Nigga, that's crazy.
Begin to travel back in time in search of work. This is pretty much your trademark making fun of both sides South Park episode, and it quickly becomes obvious through this single clip.
All right. Now I've got two guests with me tonight who have opposing views on the matter. On my right is pissed off white trash redneck conservative, and on my left is aging hippie liberal douche.
The time immigrants, as they call them, end up taking Stan's job, causing him to join the fight against the time immigrants. As things keep changing, Stan continues to become more and more anti-immigrant, with Randy chastising him for being so intolerant. That is until Randy is replaced at his job by a time immigrant, and he immediately joins the fight against them. Meanwhile, the rednecks decide that the only way to stop the immigrants is to prevent the future from happening. So they all become gay so that they can't reproduce.
Oh no, I remember that shit. That was some freaky ass shit,
Again,
man.
it seems pretty clear that they are making fun of both sides because they care about an issue. But if you look just a bit deeper, you realize that's not the case. In the segment comparing the views of both sides, they aren't making fun of them for their views, but the extreme ways that they go about sharing these views. The rednecks just continuously spout the same line over and over again about how they took their jobs, and their only solution is to prevent any immigrants from coming into the country at all.
So it's not about how South Park doesn't care or is making people not care. It's South Park is trying to teach people the way to care. Care about something. If you really care about it, don't go overboard and try to make people feel like they don't have an opinion and they can't do what they want to do. If they want to do something, let them do it if it's legal. That's what they're trying to say. And then if you do care about, if you don't really care about something, don't go out your way to pretend like you do just because you see that it gets you some sort of attention. That's what it's, and that's why I like shit like that, because I think that it takes somebody like Bloom or, you know what I'm saying, even me, but somebody like Bloom really to sit down and break and analyze and let people know, like, look, man, there are certain things that make sense and there's certain things that people aren't really taking in consideration. And a lot of people that don't take it in consideration look at South Park like it's just a cartoon that's mindless, but it tackles so many fucking issues that I'm like, this is some really dope ass shit. That's why I fuck with South Park.
The hippies' points are less extreme, but it's their smug attitude and self-righteousness that they're making fun of.
It's typical for conservative rednecks like these to view the immigrants as the problem. But really, the problem is America.
The show isn't making fun of either group for caring about the issue. They're making fun of the extreme nature of their views and the way they present these views. Throughout the episode, we also see the idea of pretending to care be parodied, using Randy to parody the people who seem to be advocates for the immigrants, but haven't actually experienced any of the negative effects that comes with them.
Oh my God! Stan Marsh, how dare you use that time-bashing slur?
Randy only cared about the cause when it was convenient to him, and as soon as he experiences his job being taken by an immigrant, he immediately switches sides.
I mean, but you know, that's also natural human emotion, bro. Like, it's easy to like be like just like a lot of people did that with taxes. You know what I'm saying? Or, oh man, I support taxes until it started hitting like the small businesses, and then until it started to the shit hit some rich people that were like, whoa, you know, whoa. And Dave Chappelle is solid. He's a solid one because he even said like, well, look, I support Obama and taxes and yada 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 yada, and nigga, and he's taxing me more. You know what I'm saying? That's how you know when somebody really fuck with what that's really about what they say they're about. But I'm not mad at Randy for supporting something or even semi-supporting it, and then experiencing something negative about it, and maybe saying like, you know what, maybe I've been wrong. There's nothing wrong with changing your opinion. You know what I'm saying? In fact, I think people should evolve. You know, just like if you were wrong about something, you know, and then you're like, wait a minute, no, this is not bad, though, that's not bad. And then you change your opinion about that. You know what I'm saying?
My job!
But this point is most clearly made in the end of the episode, where Stan proposes that instead of trying to stop the future from happening, they should work towards a better future by starting now. Then comes a montage of the town working towards a better future until something changes.
Step and you will see the future.
Wait, hold on, wait a second. This is gay. Yeah, this is even gayer than all the men getting in a big pile and having sex with each other. Everyone back in the pile.
Back in the pile, everyone!
What the fuck?
Here, it can definitely seem like they're making the point that this idea is dumb, that there's no point in caring about the future. But really, they use this gag to make the point that both sides are pretending to care in their own way by pushing these extreme narratives, since they're the easy solutions.
Or they could be also adding to the point that both sides came to a solution, which is like what people do, and then over time, they forget about it. They forget the reason why they were doing all of this, and they end up going back to what was more convenient at the time. You know what I'm saying?
When a solution arises that is effective but takes hard work and effort, they instead settle for the extreme and less effective solution.
This is gay. Everyone back in the pile.
Back in the pile, everyone. We're going back to the pile. Jump in! Come on, everybody.
So they're not saying that caring about the future is, quote, gay. They're saying that many of the people who claim to care about this cause care only when it's convenient for them, turning to the most extreme and ineffective solutions when the effective solutions are far more difficult. They also make it clear that even though they're making fun of both sides, they definitely make fun of the hippie less, giving him far less extreme views and only critiquing his presentation of the issue and lack of first-hand experience with the issue.
Hey now, these immigrants have a right to retain their culture. They deserve to have an education just as much as you do.
Thank you, aging hippie liberal douche.
And as I've said several times,
right, it's like retain culture, but retain your culture at home. Right? If you go somewhere and you go to a place and it is what it is, you got to understand that that is the culture of the place. We don't always have to change culture to fit and conform with society, how people think that we should conform with society. If you got a school and it's a Mexican school, I don't expect black kids to go or white kids to go to a Mexican school together and say, hey, whoa, where's Coogee Chocolate, man? Where's Harambe? Glass, bro. I know it's Harambe. I'm saying. This is like, bro, you know what I'm saying? Where's cheese? I don't know, bro. I'm just trying to say, bro, at the end of the day, bro, I'm just saying, you don't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? We just leave shit where the fuck is at and try to improve and be better. You know what I'm saying? But we don't have to force it on people.
Times by now. Whether this is a good or bad take doesn't matter, because it is a stance on the issue that is far from both sides bad. If you look at any episode of South Park in this way and really analyze what they're criticizing, you'll see that it's almost never people who care. It's people who pretend to care and extremists. Boiling down this show to sitting on the fence and proudly proclaiming that there's no difference between each side is a huge misunderstanding of the message. It is a lot more nuanced than that, and I think that writing the show off as uncaring and apathetic is doing it a massive disservice.
Facts.
And this brings us to our final point. A point that many of these people are either completely unaware of or have chosen to leave out of their analysis, and that is that South Park has taken very obvious and firm stances on many topics in the past. I think one of the reasons Matt and Trey feel comfortable poking fun at people who pretend to care about a topic is because they know what it's like to be true activists.
Right.
I made a whole video about the episodes 200 and 201, in which they made an almost radical proclamation of the importance of free speech. If that interests you, you can go check out the whole video, but I'm going to give the short version here. Okay. When attempting to depict the Muslim prophet Muhammad, they were met with serious backlash from extremist organizations who made threats at the lives of Matt and Trey if Muhammad was shown in the next episode. But instead of hopping back into the pile and taking the easy way out, they were willing to quite literally put their lives at risk solely to make a statement. They stood their ground and pleaded with Comedy Central to show the episode as they created it, Muhammad and all.
Right.
And even though Comedy Central censored it anyways, the fact that they were willing to put their lives on the line for their beliefs shows a level of support for a cause that most activists could only dream of. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, that definitely does not sound like the actions of someone who thinks they're too cool to care about something.
No, right.
So yeah, they have every right to take a couple of jabs at the people who pretend to care about their causes.
I agree with that, bro. I agree, bro. You got to stand up for something or you're going to fall for anything.
Because they have proven that they aren't willing to give up out of convenience. They'll take the hard and dangerous path if it means getting their message heard. So to sit here and say that South Park thinks it's lame to care about an issue comes from a place of misunderstanding and mischaracterization of Matt and Trey. It's always been odd to me that out of all of the shows, South Park is the one that receives this label of being apathetic. It has had so many episodes throughout its 25-year run that have taken strong stances on many issues, and as I just showed, even the ones that people think of as supporting this argument are far from apathetic. Why do people never say this stuff about a show like Rick and Morty, which outright proclaims many times throughout its run that nothing means anything and all of our actions are futile?
It's just like because they want to pick on South Park. That's all it is.
Nobody belongs anywhere. Everybody's gonna die.
Don't get me wrong, I enjoy Rick and Morty, but it's hard to deny that this is far more apathetic and nihilistic than South Park would ever dream of being. And I know that the majority of this comes from Rick, who's not meant to be a good guy and his apathy can be negative for his character, but the fact that he pretty much always succeeds in the end despite this attitude is a much stronger statement than his words. So why does that show never get accused of causing brain rot and creating people who think caring is dumb?
Man, because it's not as big as South Park. I think that's what it is. Just like, you know, you can do a lot of things. Like, for example, as a channel, like I still consider us a small channel, even though we're getting bigger. You know what I'm saying? We're getting bigger. But when we at 77,000 subscribers, which shout out to y'all. Thank you for that, man. I love y'all, man. We almost at 100K, man. Almost there. But even at 100K subscribers, which we at, we can say and do things that a 1 million subscriber channel can't. So by the time when we hit 1 million subscribers over on the channel, man, we're not certain things. I'm not gonna say certain things I'm not gonna say. It's just certain things that when I say it, people are going to feel a certain type of way because we're a bigger channel. They expect me to be inhuman. Like a lot of people expect once you hit million, 2 million, once you get to be known, once you do this and do that, they expect you to be less human, come with less flaws. They expect you not to shit in the morning. Like, they expect a lot of things, bro. They expect me to not have a difference in opinion than them, you know, and everything. It's like South Park is the big dog on the block. And, you know, nobody's ever really taken them down. So, yeah, they're going to get some hate for it.
Well, realistically, I think the reason South Park gets this label is no different than why the show has always been controversial. It offends people. I'm sure this label arose from people who saw South Park making fun of the ways people support a cause that they personally support and were offended by this, conflating South Park's parody with a personal attack on anyone who supports the cause.
Right.
Despite this not being the case, that's how they interpreted it, and despite the fact that the vast majority of South Park fans do not hold these apathetic views, whenever they interact with the small minority that does, it confirms their view that the show is causing this, and it further cements this idea in their head. That's called confirmation bias. Now, this isn't me saying, wow, talk about snowflakes. What, did you get your feelings hurt by South Park? What are you going to do, cry? Oh, no. It's totally fine to be offended by South Park and to not like the show because of it. I just think it's more important to understand that if you hate South Park because you think it's apathetic, just try to take a step back from your own personal biases and listen to what I said in this video. Now let's stop and reflect. Are there people who have developed this way of thinking because of South Park? Yes, there are absolutely a small minority of people where this is the case. Does that mean that South Park holds these views? Absolutely not. Those people probably don't have very good media literacy, and they assume that the message of the show is that it's cool to not care.
Right.
But this is not the case. At the end of the day, South Park is a comedy show whose main objective is to make you laugh.
Right.
Just because they believe that nothing is above criticism doesn't mean that they don't care. They do. They can point out the absurdity in our world while still making firm stances on topics. These things aren't mutually exclusive. If you made it this far and still disagree, that's totally fine. I just wanted to share the perspective of someone who loves this show.
It's hard to make it this far and still have a mindset that says South Park teaches people not to care. Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna make a bold statement in saying that if you made it that far into the video and you think that South Park teaches people not to care about important topics and important issues, my friend, you're on the shallow end. What do I mean by that? You're not that you're a shallow person, you're slow. That's what I mean. Like, that's literally what I mean. You're a little fucking slow, all right? Because obviously with all the examples, with everything he said, I know he might not say it, but Bloom, I'ma say it for you. If you don't think that South Park, if you really think that South Park is trying to teach people not to care about life and different and important topics, nigga, you're slow. I'm sorry.